Guys, welcome to dailyfantasycafe.com. My name is Rob Mazaika, and I'm here with Jason Gobo, and we're here to talk about the Week 6 target and touches report. Last week, we talked about teams, specifically the Dolphins passing game, which was ugly, Eagles passing game, which is actually pretty nice, Seahawks running game, which didn't exist, and the Giants passing game, rest in peace. But this week, we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're actually going to talk about individual players instead of teams, just to make it a little smoother for you guys to make specific plays on your teams this week. So we're going to jump right in and start with our first player, Elijah McGuire. He's the Jets running back. Matt Forte is banged up, and Powell is day-to-day with a calf injury, and the Jets are home against the Patriots. They're huge underdogs, but the Patriots are 27th against the rush and 20th against pass-catching backs.
Yeah, you said it. New England's been, really struggling on the defensive side, and I kind of like the Jets a little bit this week because you just kind of expect them to be down from the start. And you look at McGuire, this is a guy who saw 13 touches last week, obviously had the big game against Jacksonville the week before. Bilal Powell's got the calf strain, Forte's got turf toe. It's looking more like McGuire's going to handle a heavy workload, and that's kind of what they're expecting as the week goes on. So I like him a lot this week. I think he's a decent RB2 in terms of value consideration. I have him about, 16, 17 projected touches, with both those guys out. I think he'll get, about 4 to 5 targets in the passing game and probably about 12, 13 rushing attempts. So given his price tags on both sides and the matchup, I think he's a decent play this week. Not a must-play value, but, I like him here and probably moving forward, too. I expect him to get some work.
Yeah, I prefer him definitely over on DraftKings, where he's 4,600 and he has the full PPR. On FanDuel, they price him up to 5,700. That's still low, but for a guy who's going to get a decent amount of his points from the passing game, it's just not gonna do it for me on FanDuel, especially against the Patriots in this matchup. They're going to be down pretty big, most likely. And it's just not a spot where I'd want to go on FanDuel, but DraftKings for sure, he's in play.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on here to our next running back that we're going to talk about, Andre Ellington with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals just made a trade for Adrian Peterson, and they also just cut CJ 0K this season. So this is going to be a different situation for Ellington with Peterson coming in, but I don't think Peterson's going to have much of a role this week.
No, I don't think so either. And I'm not really considering AP as just coming in and getting like 20 touches right off the bat or even moving forward. This is still a really bad offensive line. Carson Palmer's throwing more than any other quarterback in the league right now. I kind of expect that to stay within the top 5 and top 10 over the next, basically 8 weeks. You look at Ellington, he's seen 32 targets over the last 3 weeks. He's caught 13 of them, 18 over the last 2 weeks alone. We're just not getting consistent guys from like J.J. Nelson, Jerron Brown, John Brown. Ellington's basically been a wide receiver too over this last 2 weeks. So like before, I like Ellington a lot more on DK. I don't feel the need to use him on FanDuel with the half-point PPR because, you look at Ellington, he hasn't found the end zone, but 15.3, 19.4, and 13.1 DK points. Prices come up a little bit. I believe he's 5,300 this week. I still expect him to see probably about 8 to 9, targets in the passing game with a few touches in the running game. So I still definitely don't mind him. I think he's an interesting flex option this week against the Bucs, who struggle against pass catching backs, but just really in that game alone could be actually a shootout, just given the fact that they're both top 5 in terms of passing attempts.
You see, Ellington, I actually kind of have some interest over on FanDuel for him. I know he's going to get probably 90% of his points from the passing game, but he's only 5,500. And if you really think of it, though, if you're going to take a receiver at 5,500, wouldn't you want around the same output that Ellington's going to give you? So kind of a game theory perspective, if you don't like any of the top running backs and if you want to punt the position on FanDuel, I could see going him as an RB2 and then paying up for an extra receiver. It's a little more risky approach, but it's definitely an approach that not many people are going to do, and it could definitely pay off if multiple of those big receivers have big days this week.
Yeah, if you're definitely paying up for two wide receivers or something like that, or trying to pay 2 wide receivers and a bigger running back, I'm okay with it. I think for more, he's probably a little bit more touchdown dependent. I just kind of mentioned on FanDuel because it's a little bit lighter just in terms of like fitting in guys, so you don't necessarily always need to go down. But yeah, I'm not going to roll it out there. But DK, obviously I think he has the higher floor.
Yeah, 100%. 5,300 on DK. He's just that's pretty much as safe as it gets around that range for you over on DraftKings. We're going to move on here to another running back, Lamar Miller, the Houston Texans. They're 9.5-point favorites against the Browns. They're playing at home. And the Browns are 25th DVOA against pass-catching backs. And Miller, he's been getting a lot of touches with the Texans lately.
Yeah, 19 touches per game this year. Saw 17 last week. He outsnapped Deontay Foreman. Miller played 88% of the snaps last week. It was good to see. He's topped 70 rushing yards in each of the last 2 weeks, and non-favorable spots. He's hovering around 16 rushing attempts per game this year. I definitely don't mind him as an RB2. This Texans team, obviously, they're moving the ball. That kind of helps Miller out as well, even though Watson's kind of been the focal point with Hopkins and now Fuller coming back. But both obviously guys who I think will take a little bit of a step back as the season goes on, more so Fuller. I like Miller here. I think he's a decent RB2 this week. Cleveland hasn't really been bad against the run in general, but like you said, pass catching backs, I think game script wise, Miller's in a good spot. I think there's definitely a chance for about 100 plus all-purpose yards just in terms of some touchdown upside as well. So I don't mind him. I think he's a decent price. I think the price is going to start to come up moving forward to a range where we're probably not really excited to pay. So I think this might be the last week or so. Maybe we get another week where he's kind of cheap, but Houston's got a really good schedule going the rest of the way. They still got to play the Colts twice, play Tennessee again. So definitely some good spots here for basically what has been the best offense in that division.
Yeah, they've been crazy over these last 2 weeks, putting up over 90 points the last 2 games or something like that. But Lamar Miller, he's 5,400 on DraftKings. He's another guy in that range where it's just going to be a pretty safe play. I think he's going to be very popular with Houston as a giant home favorite. On FanDuel, he's 6,800. Maybe a little steep for him. I'm not entirely sure on that just because we really haven't seen any big games out of him other than the blowout against Tennessee. So if you really think this game's going to turn into an absolute blowout like Vegas does, I could see using Miller on FanDuel. But in a case where he's going to be very high owned, it could be a good fade over there.
Yeah, and you talked about Ellington there. That might be the pivot just because Miller's right there in price.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then now we're going to move on to one more guy who's trending upwards in his targets and touches, and that's Roger Lewis for the New York Giants. The Giants, they all kind of just died last week. We lost Brandon Marshall for the season, Odell Beckham for the season. Sterling Shepard, he also hurt himself. He's actually questionable this week. And Ingram only got 4 targets last week, even though he was only healthy, pretty much serviceable receiver on the field for most of the game. So it's kind of a mess in New York right now.
Yeah, it is. And we're not really talking New York just in terms of plays this week going up against Denver. This is just kind of more of a bigger picture type thing because, Ingram, Sterling Shepard, those are going to be the guys that obviously see the tick up in usage. Shane Vereen might be a guy that we can keep an eye on moving forward. But Roger Lewis, this guy might be just basically thrown into some wide receiver 2 or 3 volume down the road this year. He ran 29 routes last week. He ran 27 when OBJ missed in week 1. He finished 4 for 45 in that week, and then obviously had the 29-yard touchdown this past week. Not in play, obviously, against Denver, but like you said, Marshall, OBJ out. That's 36% of the targets that are up for grabs there. You obviously expect Shepard and Ingram to get most of those, but I think Vereen and Roger Lewis can become kind of more secondary guys because, this is still going to be a pass-first offense. This offense doesn't run the ball. They really can't run the ball. And while they're probably going to be 0-5 after this week, 0-6 after this week, it's just I don't know. I don't know what to make of this offense moving forward. I just don't think there's going to really be an exciting kind of down the field threat anymore like there was before. So it might be a little bit iffy.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly, especially without Odell Beckham. He was their big play guy. Without him, who the hell is Eli going to throw to that's going to get him a 80-yard touchdown off a slant? That's the new Giants offense. They're throwing quick passes, quick short passes, trying to get the running after catches. Eli's down there at the bottom of the league in air yards this season. And Roger Lewis, he's going forward, he's going to see a uptick in targets for sure, especially with all those targets missing and with Odell Beckham and Brandon Marshall. But this week against Denver, it's not even available on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, just stay away for now. But going forward, this is definitely a situation that we're all going to keep monitoring on. And Roger Lewis hopefully has a terrible game this week against Denver and his price goes even lower on FanDuel.
He should.
Oh, yeah, he should, but you never know. It's a weird sport. But we're going to move on here we're going to go towards players that are going to be trending down in their targets and touches lately. And we're going to start with Carlos Hyde, who's been losing a lot of touches to Matt Breida. And the coach of the 49ers came out and said that he was just going to roll with the hot hand, and apparently Hyde's not the hot hand anymore.
No, he had 11 yards on 8 carries, and they kind of bounced him quick. And I just don't even think that Hyde's actually healthy. He's been dealing with the hip injury, even though they've been kind of trying to hide it. He was questionable both weeks leading up to the game, and then kind of pulled off Friday. But I don't think he's healthy. Breida's obviously a guy that they kind of like back there. He saw 13 touches. He out-touched Hyde by 4. And like you said, I mean, Shanahan's going to ride a hot hand. That's just not something that we like to see in fantasy. Those are just bad words. So 9 touches in week 5 after averaging 22.7 touches per game for Hyde. I'm going to see that he gets a tick up against Washington, but I'm not really fully giving him back a 20-plus touch role anymore. I don't think we're actually going to see that maybe for the rest of the year if he's not healthy. So 14, 15 touches, I think that's a mild projection for him this week against Washington. He's not really a big guy who depends on game script. He works well in the passing game as well. So I think I'm just actually going to stay away. I think I saw enough against Indy where, he might not be healthy or just solely they're going to get a split backfield. So I'm done.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I was going to say I'm going to stay away, especially at his price too on DraftKings. He's up there at 6,200. I mean, it's lower than what he was before, but I mean, he deserves a little cheaper price tag with his role, especially last week. And on FanDuel at 6,700. I mean, I don't even think I wanted to pay around 6,700 or 7K for him, even with his increased role. Even against the Colts last week, I stayed away. I know a lot of people got burned on it, but he's a guy who can get injured on any play of any game, and he's always dealing with that hip injury or some other ailment that he just randomly comes up with. And he's had the one game against the Rams this season, but that was only because he ran 2 touchdowns in. So without those touchdowns, he's really not that big of a producer, on FanDuel at least.
Yeah, no, I know. It really is. Game against the Rams, he was decent against the Seahawks, but, outside of that, it's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, he has been. And now we're going to move on to a tight end for the Detroit Lions with Eric Ebron, who he was highly touted as a late-round pick this season for season longs, and it really hasn't worked out too great this season.
No, it hasn't. I mean, really, if you draft him in season long, you've probably dropped him by now, or else you should be. Darren Fells, he's seen 7 targets over the last 2 weeks to Ebron's 12. It's just kind of looking like more of a situation where Ebron's going to take a real backseat in this offense, and we're kind of going to see, Theo Riddick, TJ Jones has actually seen a little bit of targets this year, but I mean, it's a decent spot for him against the Saints this week, but I just can't really pull myself to go there. 4.6 targets per game. He did see 4 last week, but he's just not catching the ball. Red zone usage, they've started to run a little bit more. I mean, Abdullah, I think, can actually see 15 to 18 plus carries this week. So I'm kind of done with Ebron. I mean, yeah, he ranks 4th in terms of targets on the Lions, but he's only caught 12 of them this year. They're just not really a efficient offense right now. So I'm staying away. He's trending down. I mean, even though tight end's pretty ugly this year and there's not a lot this week, I think we have some other directions to go.
Yeah, on FanDuel, he's still 5,100. Just don't even look at him. Just X him out. DraftKings, 3K. I made that mistake last week when he was 3,100. It didn't work out. I wish he still had that role in this offense with that price tag, but it just looks like it's not going to be there anymore. At 3K, I still think he's going to gain ownership just because of the name, and people be like, oh, Ebron's 3K. No, he should produce. But with this year, with his role, it just looks like he's just out of the offense now. He's just blocking a little bit more. He's just not getting passes thrown at him. It's just not his role anymore. We're going to move on here to our very last player, but definitely not least, Ty Montgomery. He's trending downwards with Aaron Jones having a nice game last week.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, I mean, 125 yards on 19 rushing attempts, got the touchdown, second straight week with the touchdown. There was already talk before Montgomery's injury about kind of limiting his snaps a little bit more because he was up in the 90% range. And he just wasn't going to handle that workload all year long. And now that he's injured, I think that's even more so. So it kind of expect, Aaron Jones to start cutting into his touches a little bit. Aaron Jones is actually a good kind of, first down, second down back where Montgomery might play a little bit of a third down back role maybe in the future. But I can't really, peg him for a 17 to 20 touch game anymore, even if he's healthy this week, which, he's still going to be questionable with the broken ribs. But obviously Aaron Jones would be a decent play. But I think overall, when we look forward, Montgomery is not going to be that huge workload back anymore that we got the first 2-3 weeks. So, trending down, I mean, still a guy to obviously keep an eye on, still a solid player, probably a better PPR player at this point, if he's healthy. But I think overall, 10, 12, touches per game, I think Aaron Jones kind of sneaks some touches away from him.
Now, we know that Ty Montgomery, when he came in the league, he was a wide receiver. Now, could you see the Packers potentially maybe moving him back now that they have Aaron Jones, or do you think they'd keep him at running back? I mean, I could definitely see a point where they're just going to roll with Jones at the running back position and bring Montgomery back to his natural wide receiver spot.
I mean, they could. I mean, when you look at things, Randall Cobb, if he gets banged up, if Jordy Nelson gets banged up, who, they both have had issues this year. Devontae Adams, obviously. I think it's nice that they have that luxury, and especially because we haven't really seen anything out of the tight ends this year. So it could be. I would not be surprised to see that happen as well. But I think for the most part, we're probably looking at things that might get a little bit split, at least until they make a decision.
Yeah, that's true, especially with the way that offense is going right now and Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind. I like Aaron Jones. I'd like him more if they weren't playing the Vikings this week. It's a tough matchup for him. But 6,800 on FanDuel with you're going to get about 20 touches from him. I mean, it's just not a bad play. It's just not the best matchup for him to be in. Yeah. But that's pretty much it for us this week. On DraftKings, Aaron Jones, he's 5,600. But we already talked about two guys that are better plays in Lamar Miller and Ellington around that range. So it's really a spot you don't need to go there this week. But moving forward, it's definitely something to monitor. But that's going to wrap things up for us today at dailyfantasycafe.com. This is the Week 6 target and touches report. And I'm Rob Mazaika, and I'm with Jason Gobo. And just hop on our website, check out our optimizer, and good luck this week.